Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art, it's the Tenant Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District here in Lakewood, Colorado. And joining me from Rapid City, South Dakota, you know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, my partner and friend, Wes Brown.
Hey, Todd. Oh, my God, it's another week. I hope everybody's still hanging with us. We're back to a weekly. What's exciting is we're going back to Hunterdon Art Museum. You know, this, and what's exciting about that is I have relatives that come from that whole area of New Jersey. So this is like visiting home, even though I've never been there.
I didn't know you had relatives there.
My great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather is buried there in Hunterdon, New Jersey. So
wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So they're there. I've seen pictures of their headstones. And we're going back in my roots. Maybe I'll have a dream tonight.
You always have some interesting fact or thing that you can throw out there. That's cool that you have a direct connection there, man.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. Just serendipity, man.
Well, we're trucking right along in January, and like you mentioned, we're back to a weekly. We have some fantastic interviews. This one that we have this week and coming up in the next few weeks. Superb, interesting people that we'll have on the podcast. And then we're going to be doing something special for Month of Photography in March. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Wes, you excited?
I'm just like levitating in my chair right now as we speak. I'm so excited.
All right, let's get to it, man.
Let's do it, man.
Our guest this week works in sculpture and painting. Her work found in many public collections, including the New Jersey State Museum, the Morris Museum, and the Meissen collection, along with many private collections in the United States and Europe. She has an exhibition that opened this past week at the Hunterdon Art Museum that runs through the 5th of March, entitled Tricia Zimic, Sins and Virtues. You can check out her work at her website, triciazimic.com, and you can find her on Instagram at Tricia Zimic. Zimic is spelled Zimic. Tricia, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you guys.
We're so excited because I love your porcelain work. And then I delved into some of your other stuff. And oh my God, one person shouldn't have that much skills. So at least I know where my skills went. They all went to you because you just kill it.
Well, I gotta, like, when I start with one project, sometimes you get a little burnout and you want to do something different. So I might go from sculpture to painting to etching, but I probably won't be going back to illustration anytime too soon. But if the option arose, I might dive back in. I've been known to do that.
Yeah, I think we would be hard pressed to think of someone that has all of your skills that we've had on the podcast thus far.
Oh,
like
thank
you do a lot of things incredibly well.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoy it. Like I said, I'd like to go for more. I think it's refreshing to go from something that is 3D to 2D. What I really love is I have like basically two sets of outfits. I wear white or black. So the white is for the porcelain and the black is for the etching. And if I do like painting, I could wear anything. I mean, basically I could wear like a dress because I don't get dirty when I do my painting because it's very like, I don't know. I just don't. I mean, I wear a little smock, but I rarely get dirty. But porcelain, it goes everywhere. And it's on the floor and etching, it's just black ink everywhere on my face. It's just hard to get off your nails. It's a mess. You wear black gloves. Anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Well, we touched on, the fact that you do all these different things. At what age did you start to engage with art? What were some of your first experiences?
Well, I think everyone had, the kindergarten experience with, like, I don't know, finger paints or whatever. But I remember getting a lump of clay in my hand as probably I was maybe 10. And I made myself a little rabbit out of clay. And I believe that this was magical, that I could create something that wasn't there before. And it was like, I'm like one of 4 kids in the house. And I made myself a toy. It's not like we didn't have money, but it was godlike I felt like a god to be able to make something that didn't exist before. And so for me, the earliest memory, yes, I did drawing and scribbling and carrying on with pencils and whatnot. But, and I know I did other things later on, but I remember my first connection to art that I felt was with clay, and was making this little rabbit and feeling very special that I had made this, that it didn't exist before, and that they fired it, and I kept it for God knows how long. It's probably long gone now. But ever since then, I realize now that it was back then that I just loved the art of making something that didn't exist before in 3 dimensions.
That's funny that you use that metaphor, because that's immediately when you said you made a rabbit out of clay, I was like, that image of God making man and breathing breath in him, it popped in my head. So it's really cool that you actually, make that same metaphor description, because you're really creating something out of nothing that didn't exist, had no form, and then with your own hands is able to, it's great that kids can still do that. I mean, I think it's a wonderful project. And I remember doing something similar to that when I was a kid. And I definitely remember the finger paint. That was a lot of fun as a kid. So no, that's cool.
That was very cool to do with the finger paint, because it was as tactile as holding a piece of clay. Because what do we have first as man and woman? We have our hands, right? You think about the caves in Lacoste, France, and those beautiful handprints that were made. That's what we had. And they used whatever, iron oxides, whatever, to make that imprint. And then they would make the very special clay structures and put them into the fire, and you would have that. So it's really primeval to feel like you want to work with your hands. And I know it's extremely intellectual. When you paint, I use a totally different part of my brain. And again, my etching is somewhere between the two, because it's drawing and yet it's very tactile. Because when you wipe a plate down, and I know you've learned about etching, when you wipe it down, it's tactile. And so you're looking and you're feeling and you're touching and then you make a print. But when you're doing clay, that's very primeval to me. And then, but a painting, you sit back and you put these strokes down, either large or small, and each one has to be thought of and intellectualized and rationalized against color and shape. And it's I don't know, I feel like it's a different part of my brain that I use, and it's how I feel that day, whether I do one or the other. Basically now I've been doing mostly sculpting over the last year or so. Sometimes I'll take a break and I'll do some painting, but mostly just sculpting, because I just feel, I don't know, I like telling stories in clay. I like being a narrative artist, and I like to explain things where people can look at them and tell their own story by looking at my artwork in 3D. So, because of that feeling of, like, the first feeling of being able to sculpt something that wasn't there before, never existed before. Where painting, I feel like so many people are so much better than me. I mean, they're extraordinary, but in my world, I don't think I could outpaint somebody. I just don't think I can. My skills are good. They're not like they are with sculpting. I think really my sculpting skills are very unique, certainly in this country. I actually worldwide, I think there's only a handful of us that sculpt like this. And that's what I think makes my work different. Etching and painting, I love doing, and it's as you know, etchings are cheaper to buy because they're in multiples. So people can buy a Zimic and feel like, hey, I got a Zimic. I can't afford the thousands of dollars in the sculpture, but I can afford a couple $100 for an etching. So there's always that, and I do enjoy it.
So how do you feel? Like, what's the mental state that you recognize when you feel like, you know what, today, because I'm feeling this way, I'm going to go sculpt?
Most days now I feel that way. And if I don't sculpt, I mean, then I'm like doodling in my sketchbook, coming up with usually another sculpture idea. But sometimes you can't tell a story with sculpture because it takes atmosphere and mood that I cannot create in a 3D. And that's when I get into doing a painting, and it could be of any size. And like there was a painting I had done of this owl, and it was at night. It's called Night Song. And there's all these beautiful flowers blooming at night and moths flying, like night flying animals. And I couldn't create that as a sculptor. It would be hard. I would be hard pressed, put it that way.
Yeah.
So when I wake up in the morning, most of the time now, I am sculpting in the studio.
Okay.
So since you mentioned this particular piece, talk a little bit about this. I see that owls are a common theme in a lot of your work.
Yeah, birds in general. It's so funny. It's one thing that is a constant in my work are birds. And whether I make them, in a paintings, etching or sculpting, I just I love them because it's like, we all want to fly. We all feel like we want that kind of lightness of spirit. And I think many people can relate to birds. And in this particular one, he's catching a night moth, and there are sphinx moths flying around, and those are moonflowers. And in the back is a nighthawk flying. And I have like this magical feeling in the painting that, again, would be hard to recreate in a sculpture, with bubbles and like little like feelings of like sparkles or something floating around, that I just kind of came up with these images around the owl, and then the halo around the moon that we've seen during high humidity days. I just wanted to create that feeling of like a night song in summer. And I really enjoy it. The frame, by the way, was found in somebody was selling it out of their garage, and I bought that. It's made out of porcelain, and nothing was inside it. And I had it for years, and I didn't know what to do with it because it was so gorgeous. There's like hundreds of these little porcelain flowers, and it needed just a little bit of repair, and that's why it's in this frame. I bought that for like $40, which is a killer, and just had this idea finally come to me that would be like a dark painting with the white porcelain frame around it.
It's absolutely stunning. And I noticed that it was a porcelain frame. So I was going to ask you, I'm glad you told the story, but I was going to ask you if that was part of your creation, the frame itself, since you work with porcelain. What a great story, though. What a great find.
Yeah, unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it, $40. It was signed on the back, and I tried looking the lady up, and she didn't exist. She might have passed away. I don't think there was a date, but there wasn't. It was in an auction, and this lady must have bought it and just wanted to get rid of it. But when I saw it, it's like, I'm just going to keep until I don't know. I think other artists do the same thing. They just like pick up stuff. We're like Rolling Stones of junk, and we just like eventually use it. Sometimes I find things, on the side of the road. I found actually other frames on people just get rid of stuff wherever, and I pick it up and I end up using it. I like the idea of recycling, of course. And then I like the idea of finding use for something that someone threw out. And it's like a creative thing that's like, how can I make this work, for like whatever. So whether it's a frame or some other kind of something I find around, my husband will be like, totally like, why are you bringing this home? It's like, I don't know yet. Because I was attracted to it. So you gotta be careful about things like that, though.
Is that kind of one of the stipulations in your household? Like you gotta think it out. Like, okay, when I bring this home, the conversation I'm gonna have with my husband, I gotta rationalize it to him.
Let's put it this way. It depends on how big it is. If it's bigger than something I can hide, yeah, probably have a little conversation. Luckily, I haven't never brought an animal home like that. But yeah. Oh, wait, that's not true. I brought home many cats like that. All of my cats, I found them on the street, literally, or in the woods, trying to survive and bring them home too. But on that same level, that same line, I literally met my husband on the street in New York City. So there you go. I find my eyes are always open.
He was a rescue as well.
He was a rescue. He was a rescue. You'd be the first to admit that. Yep.
This piece is just stunning. It's otherworldly, and I'm glad you brought it up. And you won an award for this particular painting?
I did. 2018. And it was just, I actually went back to the Phillips Mill and got another award, which I was really honored to get, the best of sculpture for Diligence Kintsugi. That was a year and a half ago, I think. And
wow.
So that was by the same people, the Phillips Mill.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I love that a lot. I love the way it's framed too. That it's almost like a triptych. It's got three different distinct sections, but it's all related. I love that frame. It's beautiful.
They are three distinct pictures. Yeah. So it was painted on wood, and there are three panels.
Oh, so it is.
Okay. Yeah, so it is actually. It must have been a window, and then she had decorated it. Yeah, so then I just cut out three panels, and that's another reason why it had to be on wood. That way, you can get the size I wanted. Yeah, it was interesting because you have to kind of like figure the spacing in between and how it fits in there. But that kind of stuff I like doing. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
I have a huge affinity for owls. I've always loved owls. So anything that has an owl on it. And
I know, right?
Yeah.
I've done owl sculptures, and I just love birds. And I think I did one called Avian Embrace with a girl, and she's basically, there's birds all around her, sort of being embraced. So yeah, three owls. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 owls. And
yeah, that one sold. So it's Avian Embrace, but yeah, I just love that feeling. It was in the middle of the winter when I did that, and I was just feeling it was during the pandemic, and I felt like I wanted to do sort of something to make me feel good. And there's nothing better than having the warmth of another animal, a dog, a cat, a bird, whatever, like on you, or like embracing you, or being a part of our lives. We've always had, like, in the world of humans, I mean, we've had dogs forever, for millennium, and they were always with us, and we want that. We love to have, like, how sad would it be to not be able to have animals as our companions? So this was one that was imaginary, but something that I would love to feel. And if I couldn't do it, I just painted it.
Do you use a model or reference photos when you're painting people or these birds?
Yeah.
So in this case, was this a model, or was you just? She
was a model, but she was not a professional model. She was a friend of a friend, and she was willing to model for me. I think whenever I have a model, I always pay them, fair market value, because they're working for me. And so she was very young. She was like 16, maybe 17. I did a whole photo session, and I've been using her for years, that session that we did. And I have other women also that I've used before on, like photo sessions, and I just keep using the images. The owls were swipes that I've had, or ones I found online, and just kind of put it together almost like a collage, and had painted it.
Yeah. We've had painters that create everything right out of their head. And then we've had other painters, that paint from either reference photos or actually having models. So it's always interesting to know which is which. But this is a beautiful piece, by the way, and she's a beautiful young woman. I love that. Yeah,
she's very sweet, very sweet.
In addition to the owls, which I love, my other favorite bird in here, the hummingbird.
Yeah.
I love how you incorporated multiple hummingbirds into this piece. It's lovely.
Yeah. It was
And
really
those
fun.
look like different types of hummingbirds in addition to the different types of owls that you incorporated.
Yes, to add color. And also, again, like that magical feel. And I felt like they were almost like the twinkle of the painting that, you know, when you look at it, you don't really see them right away, but then they kind of pop up left and right. And you can just almost hear them, or feel them buzzing around as they do, making that sound. It sounds like a quick helicopter coming in and out. And the woofing of the wings of the owls coming in, and the snuggling of the other 2, 3. I just wanted that feeling of warmth and comfort. Some people might hate birds. It's like,
right.
you know, and I remember meeting someone once that said they don't like the talons, they don't like the beak. It's like, and they would probably be freaked out by a painting like this, but it wasn't meant for her. It wasn't meant for them. But I know there are people who are fearful of animals, but I've always been attracted to that. And that has been my muse for all of my life. That, I mean, I love painting women as well, but basically, like I really I'm drawn to the feeling of animals, and I love doing the anthropomorphic rendition of them, like dressing them up. In my series I'm doing with the Sins and Virtues. I just love doing that. I just think that's just a kisser to make them like the one abstinence where the baboon is dressed up as, like, you know, Kid in the Hood with a ballpark hat on, and then he's wearing like a backpack, and he's sitting on a skateboard, and then there's others that are dressed in the turn of the century, from 18th century. So I do love dressing them up, making them like characters and telling stories.
And you make reference to, you know, the German porcelain company and their use of animals. So can you address that, how you became aware of that? And then what made you really think about going down that road?
So I went to Germany a couple of years ago, and I went to the Dresden Museum of Art, and I saw these incredible sculptures by Kändler. And he was commissioned by a man to do a whole series of like every animal on the planet in porcelain. They were all about like 2 feet high. And it was for something called the Japanese house. So he had started this project. He finished his project. He did hundreds of these. And I just saw like a small amount of them, but they had enough there in Dresden that I was able to get an idea of how much fun it could be to do this kind of narrative. Because I as an illustrator in my past life, I was a narrative painter. So now it was easy for me to be a narrative sculptor. So I just love telling stories through the 3D porcelain. So when I saw this has been done centuries ago and was such beautiful medium. So I fell in love with 2 things. One, a man who was in love with animals as much as me, and he was a sculptor. 3 things, actually. And the third thing was the fact that he uses this porcelain that at that point I had not. I think I did 1 sculpture in porcelain, and I really liked it, but I didn't know where I was going with it. And maybe I did 2. And so I said, that's it. I'm going to work with porcelain, and I'm not sure what I was going to do. And a couple of months later, I went to Italy, and I was in Pisa, and at Pisa, there's a sort of like a giant reliquary. I think it's called a reliquary. And it's a giant building that has an homage to the dead. They have these beautiful statues and somewhat outside, inside. So it's like a plaza. So one of these giant murals, it was a fresco, was of the sins and virtues. And as soon as I saw it, it was like I almost fell over. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to do the sins and virtues in porcelain. So that's where it gelled. And my love of porcelain was found in Germany when I went there, because people stay away from it because it's a tricky material. It has a propensity to crack while drying and while being in the kiln by being fired. So it's a persnickety clay. But it's worth it because you can actually get such detail that you couldn't get with any other clay. It's sort of, people compare it to working with like cream cheese, that it feels like, I mean, it can get to that consistency, but then it's got too much water and you shouldn't be working with clay like that. So basically I enjoy making fine little fingers and the facial expressions that you can make with porcelain. And that's why I fell in love with it more than a typical white clay. It actually is transparent. If you hold it up to the light, there's so much silica in it, you can see through it. So like your average toilet is made out of porcelain, but it's so thick, you can't obviously see through it. But you take a china plate, a good china plate made out of porcelain, you hold it up to the light, you could put your fingers behind it and you could see your fingers behind it. So the beauty of that is, to me, such an attraction that when I do, there's a sculpture I did called Kindness, where the guy is wearing a big sombrero, like not a sombrero, but a big hat from 1740. And if and when the light hits it in such a way, you could see right through it. And I think it's just so beautiful. I just love that piece right there.
Yeah, that's stunning. Love that.
But you can see the hat and the feather. It's so thin that I have a funny story about that hat, that I wasn't sure which hat I wanted to put on him, so I made multiple hats. So he was done, and he didn't have a hat on because I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go. So I had the triangle hat, like the three-sided hat. I had this hat and I had a smaller hat. And so I finally decided on the right hat, and when you know, it slips off, and before I put it on, it falls, and I had to recreate it. So that was a recreation of. So I have a lot of extra hats laying around, porcelain hats, because I wasn't sure how I wanted it, but it balances the sculpture. That's why I like it being extra large.
Yeah, it does. I didn't even think about that, but you're right, it does. So typically, if you knew exactly what hat you were going to put on him, would you have created it in one piece, or do you always create it and then build it?
Well, that one no, I think I would have. The reason why I didn't want to do it, well, twofold. One is I wasn't sure. Two is that porcelain, another feature is that it will slump. So that hat was put in the kiln and was held up on a couple of sides just to make sure it didn't slump. So on that left side where it's fanning up, it had to be held up by a little prop. So there are things like that when you create porcelain that you got to think about. So I had to create that separately.
And then the owl section of it, that's a separate piece from the monkey, right?
Yes. So this one is before I made a base for it. So I felt there were two, like the baboon could have fallen, and I just want to have it on one piece. So I did make a base for him. And also the arrow, I don't know, do you have cats? Cats are very destructive. So the cat knocked off the arrow, and I put it in his right talon, and I actually like it better. So I recreated the talon, the quill, and put it in his talon. So he no longer has the arrow directly into his heart, but in his talon. So It looks different now. So, but I like it better because it's sort of like, remember Sebastian and the dragon, and how in some of the paintings, he's holding the arrow in his heart. And I kind of feel like it's more like he's holding it in his hand, and it's more impactful. Like it's like he took it out of where it was and is now in the event of dying. Anyway.
So what's the narrative with this? What's the story you're telling?
It's a good question. So this is called kindness. And sometimes the virtues were more difficult than the sins, as you can imagine, to show. Because in order to show kindness, I felt I had to go the other direction and show cruelty. And so he doesn't have any quills or a bow on him. So I would assume, people might assume, that he wasn't the one that killed the bird. But he is rescuing, in his hand is a baby parrot. So he's rescuing the parrot. So it's a little bit of tongue in cheek. It's like kind of nice, but we don't really know what's going on. So some of the narrative is left up to you. And if you went around and you saw him, he's got like a knife, a big saber on his right hip coming down, and he's dressed like a gentleman. He's got lace collar on, fancy hat, gloves, boots. So he looks like he's a wealthy man. And I find it, without becoming like Hallmark, like a challenge to do some of the virtues, and kindness was a bit of a challenge. So this is the way I went with it.
Well, I love the fact that you have this narrative going on, but yet it's a contract with the viewer and the artist to come up with a narrative that may be totally different. Somebody might look at it and come up with a totally different narrative, but that, yes, that connection between the viewer and the artist, once the artist is done, that it becomes the property of the viewer, is really interesting. So,
right.
And
Absolutely.
It's really cool with narrative stuff, something that is trying to tell a story anyway.
Yes. And that's the thing that I am attracted to. So the more narrative, the better, but sometimes it's nice to be simple in the narrative and eloquent. Other times I feel like I have to tell more of the story to relay the title or my message.
Yeah. I love the detail in all these pieces. Do you do a lot of research prior to, I assume that you're starting with some kind of sketch. Is that part of your process before you start to sculpt a piece?
Yes, I do. So for the sins and virtues in particular, I did a lot of research. First, I wanted to see who else did this. Anyone do this in clay? I've not been able to find anyone who has done this in clay, not the full series. And in part, maybe there might have been, I haven't seen anything. It's hard enough to find anything even two-dimensionally. So I know for a fact that this is the first that exists in full sins and virtues in the sculpture. So I do sketch, and I had researched. And so when I researched kindness, it's like, basically I was looking up, Wikipedia, like, what does kindness mean? Pride was interesting. Pride was really interesting to look up. So yes, they're all interesting. So I look it up, and then I write down notes, like, to myself, like, what's interesting to me? Where can I go with that? Like, looking at kindness or actually greed, if you can find greed. I could talk about that a little bit. It's two baboons exchanging money for a tiger that they're sitting on. So, I mean, it's kind of obvious and kind of not obvious, but, people exchanging money for animals, it just gets me in the heart. There's a painting that goes along with this too, where they're exchanging money, and I had used a famous painter, Franz Hals, to aid me in some of the costumes. In fact, I pretty much ripped off some of his painting and put baboons there instead of people. And I have the tiger coming in and photobombing in the middle. So that was the painting called Greed. So I like to research. As an illustrator, I've always done research for my paintings and reference gathering. So, here I would, sometimes I would even do a maquette. So I would do research on the internet. I would do my sketches. I would pick from my sketches which ones I wanted to go with. And then if it was really complicated, I would do a maquette. A maquette is a small rendition of a larger sculpture. So, like, I'm working on one now that is a samurai, and it's very complicated. So I did a miniature of it. And there are other ones that I've done maquettes for, because sometimes you don't know what you're getting into with a sculpture until you're actually doing it. And you want to see where you can fall into trouble or not with the sculpture. But that's basically it. I would do references, I would do my sketches, and then I might do a maquette, and then I'd go right into the clay and start modeling.
So in your maquettes, are you using the same kind of clay, the same porcelain?
I do, because even though it's expensive, I feel like I got to know what I'm working with. I like working with the same material, and it's usually smaller. They're just like little quick studies, but sometimes they're fun, and I fire them anyway, and give them out to people, friends and family. Yeah.
Do you sell them, or you just said you give them out to friends and family? So your maquettes you don't necessarily sell on the market.
No.
Okay.
No, it's really for myself.
Yeah.
And I those are just like, it's like doing an artist proof in a way. So, and then I model. So then I model them, and then the way I model them, I don't know if you want to get into this. It's not too technical really, but I work in solid piece of clay. And I basically, like, if you could imagine you holding a piece of clay and, basically the shape of the body, and I would work out the shape of the torso and put the arms on and make the head separately and then put it all together. And then once I kind of like the way it looks, I will then chop it all up into pieces. Like I take off the head, take off the arms and the tail, whatever, and hollow it out. And then, because you have to have hollow sculpture, because you don't want the heaviness, and also any air bubbles, it will blow up in the kiln, or extra moisture that can't dry out. It needs to all be uniformly dry and without any bubbles, but it's mostly all about the drying. And so then I put it back together, like I call it Frankenstein Day, where I'm just kind of like putting them all back, and then all the details are put on them. So, and then I would put them in like what you call like a moist box, and then I'd work on the other pieces. So, and then there would be a final assembly, which in the case of just looking at Greed right now, I believe I did put them all together all together in the kiln at one time and fired them. Many times I make them and then I assemble them later. So it's like an assemblage. So like Diligence Kintsugi was an assemblage, and that's a very complicated piece. That piece, when I was creating it, I pretty much created it the way I told you, but in the hat, of course, was done later. And to pick up wet clay with the look of that hat and put it on top of the monkey, that's where I think ceramicists differ from painters. Just right there. Because you just have to have like freaking nerves of steel to pick that up. And my husband happened to be walking in every time. He goes, "Wow, what's going on there?" Crazy, because it is much bigger. So right now it says 14 by 11 by 11, but it does shrink significantly. So it was a bigger hat, and so when you pick it up and it has all of the lattice work in there, you just pray that it's there and it's not going to collapse in your hands as you're setting it on top of the monkey. So that piece was very complicated. I don't think I made a maquette for it, but all the little pieces around there were created separately and then put on afterwards. They were adhered later. And then, of course, the gold was put on later. It's not fired on, but it's actually a gold that is a gold leaf. So basically, that's called Kintsugi, and that's the poetic method of mending in gold. So what he is doing is Kintsugi, and he actually is cracked in the back and made to look cracked, and some of them might actually be cracks. So the back of him, there you are. the back of them, I think that his cape might have had a crack in it, or maybe parts of his hat. So he's not only making the Kintsugi, but he's doing it, which is kind of fun. So all those pieces were put on after I fired them, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the kiln. And it's possible the base might have warped, or the plates might have warped. So I put it all together. The hat was put on while it was wet, but everything else was an assemblage. It was a tricky one.
It's a beautiful piece. I love the gold, the Kintsugi part of it. I think that is, and I didn't know that phrase before this, so this is something new for me. So I'll do some research on that, because I love that kind of stuff.
It is
but yeah,
popular. It's a little popular now. People seem to be picking it up. I've always liked working with gold and gold leaf. That's a really fun thing to do, because maybe you could show a profile piece, and there might be some more. You can see it. There's more gold on it sometimes in the profile. It's just fun. It's very relaxing. It's like there are certain parts of doing a sculpture that has its own feel to it. Some people may not like doing, I don't know. I just love doing it, because basically you're drawing with a kind of a sticky substance. And then after it's tacky, you pick up this gold leaf and you adhere it with a brush. But it's really fun to do, because it comes in a little package, and you peel the leaf back, you turn the page, and you have no one can come in the room. There can't be any wind going. I warned my husband to not come in. Don't come in, don't bother me in the studio, because I'm doing gold leaf today. And the cats I do have studio cats. They're usually pretty good about staying away from me. So basically you have a flat, thin brush, and you rub it. You need to get static electricity on it so you could pick up the gold leaf. So I have a little video of me doing this on my Instagram. Basically, I rub the back of my neck to get a little static electricity going with a little hair. And then the brush can very carefully pick up that beautiful piece of gold leaf, and you then put it onto a little mat, and then you cut a little sliver off, and you could pick it up and put it on top of wherever you need it to go. That's one method. There are other methods of doing it where it's powder, which I've not done yet. This is the only method that I've done that I feel comfortable with at this point, but I'm open for learning other types of gold leaf. But this is what I like doing, and it's a little techniquey, but you get kind of used to it. It's the fun part. It's the decorating. It's like the cake decorating part of it.
Talk about, with this particular series, why you decided to incorporate baboons, specifically, I guess, Chacma baboons.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, it does harken back to the orchestra, the monkey orchestra by Kändler in Dresden. He had done a series of this, and they were such a delight to the people of Germany that anyone that was anybody needed to get this collection, whether they just get one or two or they get the whole thing. But when I was there in Dresden, I did see the entire collection, and it was just breathtaking. It was really fun, and they were funny. And I like adding a little humor. And I feel if I could do a sculpture and not only get people to stop and look at it, stopping power, also have a little humor in it, I just love that. I just think it's just an extra. So, I mean, I think the reason why I use them is that they're funny. They're just like us. They can make expressions exactly like us tenfold. You know, they can make like really funny kissy faces. Like this guy is like practicing, he's doing the diligence, you know, of the Kintsugi, and he's got the funny expression on his face. His eyes might be placid, but his mouth is like a little 2-year-old, you know, kind of like pursed forward with his lips. And most importantly, they have opposable thumbs, so they can hold a martini glass. You know, it's like, you know, they can hold a paintbrush, and they could do so much that they emulate us. And I can get away with things that maybe would be otherwise inappropriate if I used humans.
Right.
Like lust. as an example. And they're just funny.
Did you do a lot of research to decide what species of baboon you were going to utilize?
Yeah, like the chimpanzees, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like their faces as much as I did the Chacma. I like the Chacma because it's almost dog-like. They have almost a dog face. Here's Lust. So Lust was really fun to do because, I mean, you can get really crazy with Lust, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things, gluttony. Some of them I'm redoing now because I just have so much more vocabulary there to get into. Lust I could probably redo too. But so this is an adolescent boy. They're not dressed up. And it's a sin. So he's glazed. So all the sins are glazed and all the virtues are not glazed. It's because I fell in love with the unglazed, that the second series was unglazed. So anyway, the one with Lust, it's an adolescent boy and he's wholly, praised for this girl. She's just doesn't know how to control himself, but he has his hands kind of like he's holding his hands, like trying to control himself. And he's looking up at this woman who's in estrus. Obviously she's going through, and she's teasing him. She's clearly teasing him. She's up on a stump and he's looking up like, can I? It's like, he's just trying to get up there and who knows what's going to happen next. So it's a rather small piece. It's only like 12 inches high, almost 13. And, it was really a fun, quick piece to do. And some of them go quickly and the ideas come quickly. Others are more difficult and they're more narrative. And this one I feel is a simple narrative.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, I've seen Wes in this exact same scenario before.
There you are, Wes. There you are. Just snip it in the mouth.
That's right. Yeah, I can relate to this one.
There you go. So next time you could be my model.
There you go.
Well, see now, imagine that, Wes. We'll have to find some willing woman and to sit there and be that person. And I'll just use you. We'll just dress you up, though.
That would be awesome. That'd be awesome. I do want to say one thing. What I really love about your stuff, like I looked at the Monkey Orchestra stuff this morning when I was doing a little bit of reading about you. And they're exquisite and made in the 1700s, right? Is that correct? But I love the fact that yours are just one color. They're white. And I didn't make the connection between the glaze and unglaze, but I do like the fact that they're not super colorful, that they're just simple, clean pieces. What was the reason for that? The reason was that, number one, I love the medium and I wanted it to show for what it was. And it kind of harkens back to feeling like Carrara marble, especially when it's unglazed. And secondly, when it gets so complicated, some of my pieces are really detailed, that color would just be a distraction. And I don't want to be like, when you're a little kid and you do, color in the numbers. I didn't want it to feel like that. I wanted to, feel timeless, and I didn't want to like color in the numbers for people. I don't think I would even do it like that. I don't know what I would do if I would put in color. In fact, Meissen I'm just signing a contract now with them for Diligence Kintsugi for them to reproduce that one. Wow. And they are talking about adding color and or gold. And I'm good with the gold, but if they start adding color, I'm not going to be so happy exactly with that, but we'll have to talk about it. Maybe I'll have to take a little trip there and see what I can get them to do or not do. But I really do. I like them in white because there's so much going on all around us that it's almost an ease to just look at something with white and it's three-dimensional than to have so much color all the time. I mean, I love color. I love painting, but I just find it easier with all the detail to leave it without color. And I think it might, and obviously I don't know because we're not seeing one, but I would be afraid that using color would distract from the narrative. Like this is a simpler way to convey the narrative, and then you throw color in it, and now it's become, like you said, more complicated, more distracting to the eye, which, you know, in itself can be beautiful, like the Monkey Orchestra, very beautiful pieces. But
Right.
when I looked at your stuff first, and then when I looked at theirs, it was just like kind of I was kind of half expecting to see something very similar, because I hadn't seen that before. And it was almost too much for me. I really love, and probably because I love black and white photography, and this is kind of similar to that.
Right.
We don't see in black and white, so this appeals to me, I think, in that sense too.
Yeah, it's you know, you like to think that, okay, it's more artistic, but I hate using that word because it's not about being more artistic. It's more beautiful. And also, if you saw these in real, you know, time, the quality of the porcelain, we're looking right now at abstinence. Like, you can almost see it with the hamburger there with the box. You can almost see the light coming through it. It's just so beautiful. There's more to appreciate with less in this case.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
What I love about this piece is that it's almost like McDonald's fries, you know, the fact that the burger's in the case, and it's a modern version of food instead of just, you know, whatever food. It's actually contemporary food, and I love that idea.
Yeah, I want to do more contemporary feeling with the ancient feel of porcelain. I really enjoy that. Definitely, you know, with him. There's one with if you could, Todd, go to the one with the skateboard. It's right. It's the same abstinence, and you can hit any one of them. There you go. So that was really fun to put, like, you know, put a backpack on him, and he's sitting on the skateboard, and he's wearing the baseball cap, and he just kind of looks like a fun kid, right? He's just sitting there like, which do I choose? Should I not choose? So in his backpack is all good food. And, you know, he's got healthy vegetables and a fish sticking there, and there's some lettuce and all kind of bananas sticking out. And he's being a good boy, but in front of him are, like, you know, French fries and pizza and hamburgers. And that's what the abstinence is all about. But it's a pretty clear narrative, but yeah, he's adorable. He's really fun. Like, he's like, you can hold him in your hand. He's not terribly big. But I do like the contemporary feel of that, and I do want to do more of it.
I love the detail in his fur, and I just love this piece too with the skateboard. It's just fun. It's whimsical.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad you spoke to the whole glaze, and I didn't pick up on that you had differentiated between the sins and virtues, because I was going to ask you about that. And there's different types of porcelain. Is that correct?
There are different brands of porcelain, and there are different recipes.
So is this considered soft paste?
I guess it would be hard paste.
Hard
but
paste.
That's sort of like an ancient terminology, but it's high fired or mid to high fire. I fire at cone 5. For those people who know about ceramics that might be listening, I fire at cone 5, which is not the highest, but it's high enough to become vitreous, which means it's you cannot. It's like water can't go through it. If I made a cup, it would with this clay unglazed, water will not permeate from it. So it's vitreous. There are different types, different recipes of porcelain. Mine I use is called Frost, and it's from Laguna. And has a lovely consistency. When you first take it out of the bag, it feels stiff and kind of nasty, but the more you work with it, not nasty, but the more you work with it, the softer it becomes, and becomes more malleable till you can imagine this is how I work with it. It gets very soft and quite lovely, and you can get it to do you can make very expressive faces and high detail with fur. And just a lot of fun to sit there and make, you know, French fries, hamburgers, and all those little pastries all around him. It was really a lot of fun. It was, I enjoyed probably listening to one of your podcasts when I was doing that.
Now,
Yeah.
is that because of the heat from your body, from your hands, that it becomes a little bit easier to work with, or?
I think it's not just that. I think it's just it's the nature of the clay. There's something about the platelets that get restructured in the clay that once you start mixing them, that it starts to become more malleable. So not so much the heat, but being just malleable, just manipulating the clay makes it softer.
Okay.
It's
Interesting.
that's the difference. Another difference between that and regular stoneware clay, that it's just there's so many different the ingredients themselves are different. There's a lot more silica and quinoline, choline, or something. I forget what the name of it is. But there's different ingredients in porcelain compared to stoneware, because you would never be able to get this. I mean, you can get detail, but it wouldn't look like this in the end. It just doesn't have that transparency. And also, if you pling my artwork, you'll hear a high ring, like a glass, like that, because it has so much silica in it. But if you did that to stoneware, you wouldn't hear that. You'd be more like a thud, a deeper sound. It's also very strong clay. I mean, once it's fired, it's the material that you use in a freezer to hold the light bulb in. It's like light sockets. It's the toilet people sit on. It's used for many different things, obviously, other than artwork. They call it China because porcelain was first discovered in China, but it's porcelain, obviously. And the story there is that there was a man who everyone knew about porcelain in 18th century, but no one can get it. So, these people were sent to get porcelain from China, and they'd bring it back, but it breaks and you have to go back to China, and it was just too much back and forth, and they wanted it themselves. So I think it was Augustus the Strong imprisoned a man, an alchemist, for quite a while. So I think it was a year or two. He said, "You're not coming out until you figure out how to make porcelain." And the guy's like, "I don't know, but maybe I can do it." But it was a matter of him living or not. So this man came up with his own recipe of real porcelain. Might be a different recipe than China, but it was still porcelain. So that was in Meissen, Germany, in the castle that I showed my artwork in over the summer, in Albrechtsburg Castle. So when I went to Albrechtsburg Castle, after I went to Dresden, I was like, again, smitten with what I was looking at, the castle itself and how porcelain was first founded there and discovered there. And then being able to show my work in that castle was, a dream come true. It was just amazing. Yeah, that's the castle. It's phenomenal.
That's stunning. How did that all come about?
Which part?
The exhibition there in Germany.
There was a call for art for people who were doing porcelain, and I happened to get it in my email, and I saw it. And the first time I applied was during the pandemic, and everything fell apart. The world fell apart, and then it was canceled, and never heard back from them. And then they sent it out again about a year ago, and sure enough, they accepted my work. And they accepted it last time, but I didn't know because everything shut down before I even got an acceptance. So I had 3 pieces sent over there. Kindness was one of them, and diligence was the other. And then anyway, so it was in the castle itself, and it was just glorious. I mean, the mayor was there, the governor of Saxony was there. It was quite an experience to be in a place that the origins were like, it's sort of like it went back home. It was glorious. The whole day was just so wonderful. It was so beautiful. And then after the opening, we went to a place called the White Elephant. This is so niche-y. It was a club just for porcelain artists.
What? Really?
Talk about like, niche. I mean, there's not even I don't even know of a clay. I mean, I'm sure there's clay clubs somewhere, but I've never been to one. But this was beyond just clay. It was porcelain. But Meissen is their world. So this clay was founded here and everybody wanted it from Germany. So it kind of made Germany. It made the Meissen. It made the town. So you could see most of the town, there's a shot here we're showing, most of the people, most of the township was there. So and anybody showed up, and they all, you know, it was a big deal. They had musicians there, and so having my artwork in the castle itself was a dream come true. It was just like it was like it finally came home to where it belonged, like full circle. Like it went from Germany all over Europe to America, and then back to Germany again. So I was really honored to be a part of that show. And that is the piece that is being manufactured. This Meissen manufactory rather. It's just down the street. That's where they're now producing the clay works. But originally it was in that castle, the Meissen Albrechtsburg Castle, where they produced it and made it, but it became so popular that even that big castle wasn't big enough. So they moved down the street quite a while ago.
Wow.
So that's basically the story of porcelain in Germany. Everybody wanted it. It caught on so quickly, and somehow I think they stole from each other the recipes. So it got pushed around pretty quickly, but it was the origin. And I'm glad that Meissen did get credit in the end, that it did, you know, this poor guy was kept in a dungeon for 2 years. So it is their history. So everything is based around this castle that's that town. So you can imagine when the opening happened, everybody was there. It was really fun. It was really a great honor. And there was 23 other artists, I believe, who were also showing during the summer. So it was really great to talk with them as well.
So when you went to this club, is there like a special handshake or secret sign that you have to give if you're one of these artists, porcelain artists?
I wanted to stay there the whole night and talk with these people. Unfortunately, we had an engagement with a dinner engagement, so I was only there for about an hour. I you know what, there could have been. It wasn't, you know, and it was so amazing to sit there and talk with other people who do what I do. Like I can't find people who do what I do. There's not enough of us. You know, it's like I wish there was one. I should start a chat group. Because there's times it's like, you know, this thing is still cracking and I need some help. So it would be nice, but these people get together and it's right down the street from the castle. There could have been a handshake. All I know is that they had some beautiful spread out for us, and we talked shop for whatever, about an hour, and then I had to go. But it was just, and it was all international. So there was people who didn't speak, not everyone spoke English, but most of us did. So it was just a meeting of minds under the guise of porcelain. Pretty obscure, right?
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it is amazing. Yeah. So there's just not that many people working in porcelain in the United States. Is that true?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot. I mean, you could Google them and you'll see handfuls of people compared to people who work in stoneware. It's just because it's tricky. And, you know, why do tricky when you get your image out really quick and with regular clay? I'm sold into the beauty of it in a way that I can't find in other clays. So that's why I'm stuck with it. Happily.
Is there anybody making clay in the United States, porcelain clay? Is there companies that do that? Oh, there are.
Yeah.
Okay.
In California that I know of, this one called Laguna, but there are others.
Okay.
Yeah, there are others. They get the tantalum, I think it's called, colon, I forget the name of it. There's a certain white mineral brought from New Zealand, and it's mixed with other substances, but most of it is New Zealand, and they mix it here. They know now recipes to use that work. There are some that are better. So I finally got to this particular clay that I really love and works for me. Some of them are harder to work with. They're drier and they crack while you're working and just uncomfortable. And also the finish isn't very good. So this particular clay, I'm very happy with. As I said, it's called Frost by Laguna. So I'm happy with them and sticking with it till I see something different.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And then the other question. So how long have you been working in porcelain?
In porcelain, probably, 2016, 15, something like that. So,
and then, so what did you start with? Did you start with just like regular clay, stone clay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stoneware. Yep. Started with stoneware, white clay. And then I work with other clays to build larger sculptures, but I forgot the names of them, but it's mixed with a kind of pre-fired clay called grog. So you can make large sculptures, like you can make life-size sculptures of people or bears or whatever, and not have it crack. And you could, it's more forgiving than what I work with. To make life-size porcelain. I think people do it, but I have not. I have not gone any bigger than like 2 feet. And I don't think I want or need to really at this point.
I think it's amazing that you've only been working in porcelain since 2016 and that you're this good. I mean, this seems like this should have been from like when you first went to college and this is all you've worked in, because it's amazing. It's beautiful stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I have worked in other clays, but I haven't been able to get the detail that I wanted. So I'm really in a happy spot right now. Being able to, I have the clay I like and my subject matters. And but before it was like I love working in clay, and I did more environmental work where endangered animals and such like that. My solo show I did for the New Jersey State Museum was all about basically endangered animals and the environment, and places that they were pushed into, and so that was mostly clay. I did some paintings, very large paintings as well, to accompany that show. But I guess when you find something that you like, you pick it up quickly, right? And you just you're good at it, and it flows. It's like getting the needle into the vein, and you finally hear it's like, okay, it's working. This really did work for me, and I did. I think I love it better than any other medium. I think I'm just most comfortable in it, to work with my hands, and it just like I feel so lucky, right? Like to have this ability and to sit there and to make these sculptures, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm very excited about tomorrow to see people's responses to them. Each one is labeled a sin or virtue, and there is 9 of the 14 sculptures in there. So I think it's the largest showing of the sins and virtues altogether. And the lighting is beautiful, and they're sparkling, and it looks really amazing. So I'm very excited about that show. And I will definitely send images from the show to you so people can see it. And if anyone is in the Jersey area, Pennsylvania, Jersey, New York area, come and see it in person, because it would definitely be worth the while, because sculpture should be viewed in person. Sculpture is like an installation art. You have to see it. It might be stationary, but you have to see it to get it. And I always feel bad. I try to take as many photographs as I can, but Wes, and Todd, if you saw my work, you'd be like, now I get it. You could actually pick up those French fries, you could pull the things out of his backpack, and you could see the light going through it. So it's something to experience, sculpture. My etchings, you could see online and know what you're going to get. But if you had an image of my porcelain and you got it in the mail, you'd be like, oh, it's like, oh, there's so much more, back, front, side, looking down. It's just, it is a lot to look at. And then when the light hits it a certain way, it's spectacular. It just glows. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm really excited about tomorrow to see people's reaction.
Yeah. No, I can't even imagine.
I was just going to ask, how does porcelain in the whole process of like firing and stuff differ from other clay?
A lot. It differs because the drying of it alone. So once you sculpt it, you have that capability. You can get more fine details. You can get pretty good with other clays, but you can get more fine, more close to deep, very detailed work. And then as it dries, you have to, any part that's very thin, you have to wrap it very tightly with plastic. So it dries at the same rate as a thicker piece of clay body. So that is somewhat like normal with other clays, but it's more so with porcelain. Porcelain just wants to crack apart. It just does. It just wants to come apart. And have I ever had things crack in the kiln? Sure. Is it ever a problem? No, I redo it. I'll just redo it. If it's a problem, I can redo it most of the time. Or there could be like a little patchwork. All right. So, and then the fire. So with the drying, it cracks more. And then in the actual firing, it cracks. So in the drying and the firing, there's more cracking. And the temperature could be the same as any clay. Typically you fire it at a mid to high fire. And I just think people who work with porcelain just they just get sold on it, and it's hard to go back to other clays. They might have a purpose to work with another clay, but yeah, it's tricky. You just feel like it's sort of like falling in love with a person that maybe you think is not perfect for you. It's like, but you know them so well now, and you know their flaws and you know their good sides, and you're like, okay, I got this. It's like, I'm in love.
Does it take longer to fire it than other clay?
Yes. So each piece is fired 33 hours.
33 hours.
Yeah. So it's very slow to reach the temperature. And even if I do glaze them sometimes, but it's just a clear coat. So I just put them in just completely dry. And it's a very slow acceleration to 2167, something like that, degrees. And it stays there just momentarily and it kind of drops down super slow. And then you just want to cool it. It goes up as slowly as it goes down. So it titrates down and it's programmed. I have 3 kilns. I have a small one for a test kiln. I have a medium one for smaller pieces and a large one for my larger pieces. And when I put them in, I have a program for them. So there's something that I do called soaking, which takes out, it just goes up to 180 degrees to take out all moisture. So after the soaking, then I hit the program to fire it. And that I actually got from Scut. Scut is the name of the kiln company who I used. I was never trained in ceramics per se. I taken workshops. I've learned through classes, through friends. So everything I've done is by trial and error. And I would never trust myself to do my own programming. So I called Scud Kiln and speak to this guy, and he's just like, thank God he's there. Anything ever happened to this man, I'd be in trouble. I have to rely on somebody else that comes in, but he's just been so helpful, and it's his kilns. So he knows what I'm trying to do, and he knows the medium I'm working with. So sort of like a doctor knowing your issues. So he helped program 3 of my kilns for me. That's the real difference. That the firing of it is much slower. That is one of the bigger differences.
And then I would assume that environmental factors affect it as well, like humidity. Does that come into play?
As it dries, yeah. You just want it to go super slow. So think of when I do the firing and how slowly it goes to maturity and then go down. Same thing with drying out your sculptures or your ware, that it needs to go super slow. I don't like when I make a piece, I just then forget about it and go on to my next piece. I check on it like every couple of days to make sure everything's moving along, but basically, I don't want, I want to think about it anymore. It's in an area that is, it will progress along to being drier and drier. So it's in a room that the kiln is in, and pretty much close the cats out of that room so they don't go in there and knock things around. And then eventually when it's 100% dry, when it feels not cool to the touch, I pick it up and put it into the kiln. And then I do the soaking I was telling you about at 180 degrees for 6 hours. And then I program it to be fired for 33 hours. Process.
Wow. It's a lot of process.
It's a lot of process. And it's like etching. It's a lot of process, but you got to love it. And you have to not mind it. It's like Wes with photography, like the old days with all the process. You remember those days with soaking? Did you do that with the paper and everything?
I did, traditional black and white, and so is Todd, but I've never done like collodion, like and you're seeing a popularity of that coming back, where it is a very chemical base. So everything was, you mix chemicals and you add temperature and all that, but it's nothing like what you're doing. That's crazy. 33
well, you would
hours.
still have to know your stuff. I mean, I remember mixing the chemicals for photography when I was at Parsons. You have those 3 trays, right? You got the one that matures it, and then you have one that stops it, and then you have one that
fixes it. Yeah.
Fixes it. There you go. Yeah. Oh my God. In the dark room. Remember the dark room?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it gets a little sketchy in the art department. The dark room. Better know who you're in with.
That's how I met my wife, actually, is in the dark room at Black Hill State. Yeah. So
there you go. That's what I'm talking about. But that was fun. And I guess I really love process.
Yeah.
And I like knowing what I can and can't do. And I like learning new things to do with etching and clay work, which is the reason why it is fun, if possible, to do workshops, and go to a class, because you can always learn from other people. And I love that. I love learning and being sociable and kibitzing around with people. It's great, and I do like process. And then once you have the process down, it's like you could just kind of relax and be artistic. But some people, I think they just want to go right to the artistic part, like with painting, right? It's direct. And I've heard you said, one of your people you interviewed about direct painting, and how they just like taking the paint and they put one color next. I think it was the wildlife painter, but she would take her paint brush and just put one color next to the other, and it would be direct, and then it's done. Imagine that. It's like, that for me is like, I mean, I painted too, but it's just so, the worst part is about my work, I have to say, is that even when it's done, and even when I like it, and even when it's at a show, you treat these things like fragile babies. They're all my babies. And I'm glad to have someone take them from me. You take them, because they're a responsibility. Because then they have to take care of them, that no cat gets them, no cleaner knocks her butt into them. The museum has to protect them with covering. It's sort of like you're the caretaker of that sculpture. So, there's that, as opposed to a painting that you could just stack next to the other, or ship it internationally and not pay a fortune and not have to worry about it breaking. Right. I could take mine out of the kiln and then whoops, right. Something can happen. Right. Even though it's done.
And shipping all the way to Germany. Well, I suppose you know how to ship stuff and you trust the shippers, but it would be like, oh my God, I'm afraid they're not going to make it.
No, it was that. Yeah. It was that. So we had professional shippers, and I did not pack it myself. And they were great. The guy came in, as a Ukrainian guy, and he wrapped it up in just tissue paper. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. This is my wrapping that you're seeing right now, my boxing. So there's boxing and driving it to the museum. That's one thing. And then there's shipping it to international. That is a whole nother story. So this guy came with his wife, and he wrapped them up in like tissue paper and then put it in a box, bubble wrapped around it, and then took it to Brooklyn. And then there was a wooden case made for it that was so elaborate. It looked like a cabinet. It was unbelievable because it came back in the same material. And, we had to pry the box open and take the artwork out. And it was expensive and took time. And, I paid one way, they're going to be paying the other way. It was amazing to me that nothing broke. I was shocked. I really was shocked. I couldn't believe it. It's like, that's amazing. But it also, buoyed how I felt about shipping now, because now I know I can ship and, with good faith. I mean, things could happen, but they didn't.
You found a shipper that you can trust and that that it was, sent overseas and it made it just fine. It would make me so nervous. I bet you were just a wreck.
Oh, I was. I was wreck. I was behind the poor guy saying, they're he goes, I know they're fragile. And I was biting my knuckles. I was behind him. I didn't want him to see my face because I was sweating buckets. And I was like, yeah, that piece, watch the paintbrush. Tiny little paintbrush that actually wasn't in his hand permanently because I wanted it to be able to, in case of shipping, you take it out. But he left it in. I told him, you do what you want to do. Anyway, there's lots of little pieces, and anything could have broken somehow or another. It was like freaking magic. I couldn't believe it got there in one piece. I told them at the museum, please let me know right away if anything broke. He finally got a hold of me. He said, no, nothing broke. I was like so happy. And then when it came back after 3 months and nothing broke, I'm like, okay, that's great. It can be done. So, But doing it myself I'm actually fine with it. It's all about mindfulness. So you have a sculpture and you want to put it in boxes. You put the bubble wrap down there and you just bubble wrap around it and you put it in. But that's only taking it to a local museum. That's so different. That I can do. Just a lot of bubble wrap. And as long as they don't move, that's the secret to shipping and to moving any sculpture, is that as long as it's sitting at the bottom and it's not moving, you're good. The rest of it you can leave open. Trial and error.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been a wreck.
Yeah. I in fact, I asked my husband, has anyone got anything I could take for this? I don't think wine is going to cut it. But somehow he came quicker than I thought. And before you know it, he was gone. So little Valium or something. I don't know what little mama's helper would have been helpful, but didn't have any on hand.
Tenant wants to acknowledge our media sponsor, New Magazine. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. And I want to share with you something very exciting. Check out the newly launched New Denver Gallery Guide. Look for the signage that says New Denver Gallery Guide that has a QR code. Scan it with your phone, and you have instant access to a comprehensive digital guide to Denver's finest galleries and exhibitions. Find this QR code in your favorite gallery, hotel, or coffee shop as you visit and explore Denver. Thanks for listening.
I'm Tricia Zimic, and you're listening to the Tenant Podcast.
How long have you been really conscious about environmental issues and putting it in artwork? When did you start doing that?
I had started doing that, 2000s, maybe mid 2000s. And of course, why I think everyone is aware now, but I think when I started, I felt like I was by myself and it's like, got this great idea. Let's do some work around environmental issues. And I didn't think many people were doing it, but and I did this one sculpture. It wasn't porcelain, but it was a while ago, of a baboon dressed up like the 18th century, and he's sitting on a polar bear, And the iceberg, he says the polar bear is on the iceberg and the iceberg is melting. And the baboon is on his back and he's looking at a mirror, and it's called Vanity. And it's about us and how we're not paying attention to what's happening. And it just, I don't know when we're ever going to wake up. And I feel bad that, we're leaving all of this to the next generation. And I don't know if it's going to make a difference. I mean, my daughters are like, trying to be conservative. And one of my daughters are environmental law. She was environmental science and now environmental law. So she's doing her act, and my other daughter is a social worker helping people differently. But and they do have stress. People are stressed out about the environment, if not just the pandemic, but everything has got a ripple effect. The pandemic, it's like, why did that happen? Well, take your guess as to, and there's so many now reasons why, but certainly we shouldn't be eating animals that are endangered, like the pangolin. And I did do a couple of sculptures and a few paintings about that over the pandemic. And that was, we shouldn't be eating them. We shouldn't, and they were like put into these cages next to bats, and things move around, and we kind of get what we deserve. I hate to sound like that, but it's enough already. When are we going to learn? Are we going to wait for the avian flu to come and take out 80% of us, or are we going to try to do something before that? There's just too many of us, and we're just ruining the world as we know it. And where do we stop? It's just, and as an artist, it's like, sometimes you feel like fatalistic, like where can you start? Where do you stop? And it's up to people like us to bring an awareness to people, right? To show them what they're losing. And, at this point, Sins and Virtues is covering what I can. I'm definitely redoing gluttony. I got lots of ideas for gluttony. Pride, I could put some of these together, right? Avarice, right there. Some politics come to mind. But we're just a mess, and I'm sure it can get worse. But let's save what we can now. Let's try to at least stop it from happening and do what we can do.
Yeah, it's amazing that I can remember when I was working at the Cheeseman Center, and we were talking about population at 7 billion. And then in September of this last year, we've reached 8 billion. And it hasn't been that long, and we've reached 8 billion. The one thing that I've been hearing recently is China's starting to see a decrease in birth rates.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw it. They have more people who died this year than were born.
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, that's because they don't have a good vaccine, and they pushed one that wasn't working. And now they're saying they're going to give tax credits for you have to have more than 2 children.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They don't have to do that. I know they're maybe it's about production for them. They don't have enough people to produce what they need to produce, but it's maybe that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's part about being a developmental country is because typically when you become a developed country, then your birth rate drops because you don't need the as many children to help farm or take care of businesses. Yeah. So yeah, so that's part of it because but it's just amazing the fact that like I said, we've went from an additional billion people in less than 10 years, or right around that anyway. So, and then the impact that's going to have, it's going to have a global impact.
Yeah.
So.
And you feel a little bit like, what can one do? I mean, we do little things, and then people say, well, that's not enough. I mean, but you do what you can so you feel better. We feel better. And hopefully we educate people. But the environmental art thing is tricky because I don't want to be pushing down depressed. I tell you, honestly, I stopped doing it because it got so depressing. I did a painting, I think it might be up in my painting website, of a girl holding a pangolin And she's got the saddest, mournful face on. And like there's all these pangolin scales falling down in back of her. And she's holding the pangolin. It looks really sad. And she's mournful. And it's like, oh my God, dude, who's ever going to buy this thing? And it's in a beautiful, antique frame. And the painting is beautiful. There you are. But look at bats flying in the background. It's like, that's like so ridiculous. I look at it now. And by the way, that's the same girl who is in the avian painting.
Yeah.
Avian embrace. It's got a good, mournful face. And they were adorable. The pangolins are adorable. I think I have in my collection sculpture of, I think it's called Self-Heal. Take a look at that if you can. In my sculpture collection, there you are. There's the pangolins. So all of this is my healing, if you will, that the animals are healing themselves through this kintsugi. And so I have them broken and then healed again. So I call this series Self-Heal. So that's the pangolin. I have 2 of those. I have leopards, 2 leopards, a white and a black leopard, and an owl in that series.
So I thought this was interesting in that, and the one we were just looking at, that it's a hanging porcelain piece that you really, to get the effect, you have to hang it. I thought that was really interesting.
It was very tricky.
Yeah.
It was really tricky to make that one because like the tail and how it curves like that, I had to make that in 3 pieces. And then the head and that was really complicated piece for me. I do have to say that when I wake up in the morning and I want to create something, I say to myself, what hasn't been done? What has not been done? What makes me different? What's exciting? And I personally have not seen a hanging pangolin. Maybe it existed, but I haven't seen it and I wanted to do it. And so that's why I did him. But all my artwork, I feel that way, that I feel if it hasn't been done, I want to explore it. I know Kintsugi has been done, but maybe it hasn't even been done with porcelain. I don't know. Maybe it will be now. But the thing is, tomorrow, what I do tomorrow, I just want it to be different than anything that I've seen or know about. Because why bother getting up and doing art? That's what I say to myself. I just feel like I personally have seen enough animal paintings, bridge paintings, landscape paintings. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. I could not do them any better. And so my inspiration for art is that I want to be unique and I want them to be beautiful and ultimately in a museum or in somebody's home. I want them to go somewhere. I don't try to hang on to my artwork. I want them to go. Some people I know actually like to hang on to their own work. But I don't feel, I want it out there. Yeah. There's a sculpture that we were just at before, the African wild dog. When I first did it, he wasn't painted. He was white and you could tell what it was, but not really. And this is an unusual case that I felt obliged to paint him. So he is painted in acrylic and then 24 karat gold leaf was put on him to continue the Kintsugi self-heal feel. So I think there might be some other shots that might have some more, you might be able to see a little bit more Kintsugi on him. There wasn't a lot of cracks that I put in him. But I'm thinking that it'd be fun to just let something actually crack up and like more severely and then try to put it together or not. So it shows like healing maybe can happen and maybe it can't happen.
That's a great metaphor. The Kintsugi for self-healing and whether it can or not. I think that's a great metaphor.
Yeah, I would like to make a piece and allow it to crack more. And maybe something about the gold that maybe make larger cracks So it would be like a larger, I think the owl has larger cracks in it, but, or I made them to look like it's larger cracks. But it'd be interesting to do a kind of experiment with the porcelain, being it likes to crack so much anyway, that let it crack open and then see how I'd feel about putting it together or not. So those are little butterflies at the bottom that are part of the feeling of like all the butterflies, the monarchs disappearing, which you know about, the ones that migrate from Mexico down up to the Northeast, and then also California. So I have little bird wings and to symbolize the birds that are disappearing, and the butterflies, and then the owl itself to be severely cracked and then healed again through the poetic method of healing with Kintsugi. So that would be my one series that I did recently on environment, because I'm always thinking about the environment and our impact. But sometimes it's just so depressing that I was trying to create something that both beautiful and impactful, and a statement piece that is narrative with conservation.
I think the beautiful thing that you're doing is like you're addressing it, but it's not like you had said, some stuff is so direct in your face that it's disturbing, and we need that. But I think your stuff tends not to be that way. Like, it's beautiful. I can appreciate it on the surface for what it is, but then it has this deeper meaning, but it's not so in your face about it. You don't have to feel like guilty looking at it, that you can enjoy the piece purely for its beauty.
Yeah. That, because the clay is so beautiful, that I want people to appreciate the clay and the art. I like to create pieces that are, even though I have not made many simple pieces, sometimes it's nice to have a more simplistic piece, so you can really just appreciate the shape of something. And this one, even though it is quite large, is somewhat simple. And I think when you see it in person, it's nice to see the simple shape.
And not to move on to a different piece, but the Black Panther. Oh my God, that gold leaf on the Black Panther because of the contrast, is so stunning.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a black porcelain, and a little bit tricky to work with. It also liked to crack. It liked to do fun things in the kiln. And it was I really did enjoy putting the gold onto that black surface. So that might happen again. The only thing I really didn't like is that it changed my whole studio around. So I had to work with, the black clay is actually red when you work with it. So I had to change everything in it to, like, it has special canvas. I would work with that instead of working with the white canvas. And the tools all get encrusted with red clay. And so it's hard to get that off of there. You go from, the red clay to the white is just, and then I did the best with my clay, but my tools, rather than cleaning them, but sometimes it's just like, oh God, there's still some red clay around. So that might be the only piece for a while.
Yeah. I didn't know that there was even such a thing as black porcelain.
Yeah.
I just assumed you painted it black with acrylic or something.
It's a black clay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so stunning because of the gold, the contrast of the gold on the black panther, that it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I have their tongues all gold. So they're kind of like healing themselves, cleaning themselves, like almost like licking a wound. So the crack is the wound, and they're healing it by cleaning themselves or licking it.
Yeah.
And some supernatural power.
Right.
That's a good pose, I think.
So is art a way of giving you hope? You talked about how artists could be fatalistic in some ways, especially when you're thinking about various issues that affect humans and our world, the animal world and our planet. What gives you hope?
Actually, what gives me hope is more like walking through the woods and seeing that it's all still here, and that we could make a difference. And I think that only smarter and smarter people are being born. You know, tomorrow's children gives me hope. And just like seeing nature and doing what I can to get people to think about healing our planet again. I'm always thinking about that. What gives me hope? I guess I honestly don't read the paper. don't read the newspaper, because listen to too much news. I've actually lessened the amount of time I listen to the news now, or I take the headlines and I don't get much further than that. But honestly, we used to have the TV on since 9/11, 24/7. And it was just not at night, but like we'd shut it off at night, but all day long, just in case something were to happen. That's how crazy it got for us here, because we were right on top of everything. So we were in Jersey at the time, and we saw the burning buildings. And I had my 2 kids at the time. They were very young, but I think we all have a fear factor now. We're all like waiting for the next horrible thing, financial crash, pandemic, another 9/11. There's so much. I don't even want to go into that's just what did happen, what has yet to happen. So there's that. And then there's like, you have to live your day, right? So the way I live my day, I get up in the morning, I go for walks. And as I said, it's a beautiful area where I live. So I try to keep that like a center, like a good starting point. It's almost like a meditation. It is a meditation to walk. Most of the time we do walk with a group, but sometimes I walk by myself. And it's a wonderful meditation to do a walk. And then I go to my studio, not looking at the news, not checking out the news. I go to my studio, I set up, I make myself tea. Make sure my tools are all clean and ready for me to go. I'll put on music and I'll see where I left off. And I'm working there until lunchtime. I take an hour or so break, an hour and a half, and then and get back at it, until like around 5:30. And that's how I spend every day. And I just, I think sometimes it's not sticking your head in the sand. It's getting through your day. You can't constantly be dragged down into every bad story. So I just think it's important to have that time to, go for the walk, do your work. And then, you can check in to see how things are going. But basically, like I heard many other artists say, nature is our only salvation. And that's what we're trying to save. And I think most people believe that if not for the ocean and the woods and nature itself, we wouldn't be here. We can't live without it. And look what happened with the bees. It's a very important thing that we keep them alive. And now government is getting behind sanctuaries with bees, trying to save them. So, I do have hope. I feel sometimes a little fatalistic, but I basically live in a state of hope that the future will be better. Thanks to all of us for being smarter and wiser with how we treat the earth and how we treat each other. Bad stuff is always going to happen. We know that, but there's so much to be grateful for, that what we do have here still, all of that's what I look at every day. Just to be, every night when I go to bed, I just count my blessings. I just do. And then in the morning I wake up, and you can't just let all the bad stuff get into your head. No more of those paintings that make people cry. And all my sculptures from the past in my archives were all about sad sack stories about, animals in places that they shouldn't be, but they're making a home out of, because that's what they're left with. My etchings, my sculptures, they were filled with that. But I think it's better to inspire people about the future than bring people down about what we've done wrong.
I love that. And you're right. The 24-hour news cycle is just overwhelming. And to break that is so important. And I'm still struggling to break that. My iPhone is with me everywhere I go, and I get alerts through New York Times, and it can be a drag. So I'm slowly trying to walk away from that. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Smart. You'll live longer for it.
Right.
Stress has a barrier, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
So we've been talking about this a bit in previous episodes. So I got to ask you, how do you feel about these climate change protesters defacing art in museums?
Probably not such a good thing. Probably not so. I mean, no one should be defacing artwork. So, yeah, I'm against it. I mean, I don't think that they should do that. They find other ways to voice your opinion than through destruction.
So you think they're hurting their cause more than they're helping their cause?
I do. I do feel that way. They could find other ways, more constructive ways of showing that they are supporting the environment than to destroy artwork. It doesn't matter what kind of artwork, they shouldn't be doing that. I would hate if someone did that to my artwork, whatever it is. I do have a piece of a large sculpture in the sculpture park that I was telling you that I founded years ago. And it's a red wolf that's endangered. Like there's only like 43 left, last I heard, off the coast of the Carolinas. They're on an island. And I did a life-size sculpture of this red wolf. And he's literally on a piece of asphalt crossing over the street. And there's a yellow line crossing over. So, if somebody vandalized that, I wouldn't be too happy about that. But I think people should find other ways of expressing themselves.
Since you brought that up, talk a little bit about this Wildflower Sculpture Park at South Mountain Reservation in South Orange, New Jersey, and your affiliation with that, your hand in it.
So I joined the South Mountain Conservancy in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and I started by doing conservation work. So that is one way that you can get involved, is to do hands-on work. And I with this other man, Dennis Percher, who started the South Mountain Conservancy, we together had started a reforestation project in this 2,000-acre preserve. And we did 42 regeneration sites. One of them was 14 acres, and that's what I managed. So we put in thousands and thousands of native plants in this preserve and in the other 42 other sites. So basically, that was my hands-on. I did that for over a decade, and I enjoyed it very much. But some people weren't going into the 14-acre preserve, the Wildflower Preserve itself. So I said, well, let's bring people into it, even though it was a highly trafficked area because there's a dog park right there. They weren't going into the enclosed area because it was like a cyclone fence, so they didn't know. So I'm like, okay, so what if we put a sculpture park in front of it that led you into this preserve? And this is just the way I always come up with ideas like this. I'm like, what if, And I'm always thinking, like, my head is always coming up with these crazy ideas. And, like some of the spaghetti sticks on the wall, some of it doesn't. Well, thank God for this guy, Dennis Percher. He thought it was relevant. And he said, go ahead and do it. The first year we had one sculpture. And then after that, it was like, we progressed to like 4 sculptures every year. So I would vet them. And I would find artists throughout the area, like mostly New Jersey, but it could be Pennsylvania, New York City, wherever. And we would show 4 of their works, different artists every year. And it was in front of the preserve. And there was some in the preserve as well. Some of the sculptures, one of my sculptures are back in there that I gifted to the preserve in the sculpture park. So we have a lady now, Lisa Sanders, who took over my work, and she's now enjoying doing the volunteer work of running the sculpture park. It was a lot of work. Curating was a lot a lot of work and spent a lot of time. Like it was a real time suck. So it was wonderful, but I wasn't getting my own work done enough. So, oh, there it is. You found it. So that's the Red Wolf, and it is probably, I don't even know if there might be just a handful of them left. It's made out of fiberglass, and it was quite a construction. It was made with an armature, and foam core is in there, like you name it, newspaper, all kinds of stuff is inside there. And then it was done with fiberglass. So it was little sheets of fiberglass on top of that. And then it was painted with acrylic paint and then spray coated with car paint, clear car paint. So you could see it's outside. It's actually on top of a cliff. It's kind of hard to see, but it's up on top of a cliff and looking down. So there are many other sculptures there, and there's always changing ones. So this one, Kate Dodd, this is an interesting piece. She's pretty famous now, Kate Dodd. She's an environmental artist. And this one was, I said, can you make something in or around the willow, the black willow? It's a vernal pond. A vernal pond means that it dries up. So she said, I would love to. So she went home and she drew a sketch, and I approved it. I sent it to the board approved it. Everyone thought it was fine, that the county approved it. When she put it up, it was absolutely stunning, as you see here. And there was a environmental. So here's the other side of environmentalists. There's a person who was like a bird advocate, thought that a bird can get in between those red lines and get caught and fall into the water and drown. So unfortunately, her piece had to be taken down after it was only up for like a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. But it was an extraordinary piece where she drew red lines from the tree down to these mirrors down at the bottom. It was lovely, but it became an installation piece as opposed to a sculpture that was going to stay there. So that was interesting. So there's always that kind of drama, not always, but sometimes that kind of drama that would happen in the sculpture park, that somebody would like, oh, I don't like that, or I don't get that, or that one has to come down. There'd always be something. It was a very public area. So there'd be a lot of people coming and going. This particular piece was in the preserve. So within that cyclone 14-acre fenced in area.
Yeah, it's really interesting looking.
Yeah, it was a fun piece. A lot of kids like to climb on it in the summer. So maybe it was better it did come down, but it was a beautiful piece. So it was fun to do. I did it for about a decade. And but it was time for me to leave. And when I moved out to the country, I had to leave this behind because it was too much work, and you had to kind of be hands-on and be there when there would be an installation of the artwork, the big sculptures. So, and some of them were massive, where big excavator trucks come in, where it was just meant for like installing artwork. Harry H. Gordon was one of the artists who had a piece there for, oh my goodness, he probably had it for like 6 years. Beautiful piece of granite. It was several pieces of granite called the Floating Canoe. And he did his own installation of that piece because that's what he did for a living. He installed artwork. So it was a lot of fun. There was some high drama times when we had to move a giant sculpture from one end to the other. It was made out of metal, and it was going through the streets with this giant tiger, metal constructed tiger. It was like moving slowly. It was really fun. And it was fun. Oh, it's always fun to meet artists, as you know. We all have a journey, and these people who do these giant outdoor sculptures, they are a different breed. They are so different than you or I. They have chutzpah, if you know what that means, like nerve of steel, that they're like, yeah, I could do that. It's like, wait, what? How do you do that? How do you construct that? You'll see, you watch. There's this one guy who, Oki something, I forget his last name. I think Oki is his first name. Anyway, he was one of the last artists I worked with. He made these giant globes, out of hundreds and hundreds of coat hangers. And he hung it 25 feet high from 3 trees. And he hung, I think, 3 of them. I mean, like, how do you make that? And he must have been like a little bit of a mathematician, because it was extraordinary to see how he put them all together. And they look like floating obelisks, like that came from Mars or something. So it was just, it's fun to work with people like that. It's like, how do you go about doing that? Well, you just it's like me. It's like you take the lump of clay and you kind of just work it with, like, music in the background. It's like, okay. Yeah, that. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
What a great project. But I could see why at some point you got to decide, okay, am I going to continue to do this and spend my time, so much time helping facilitate this, or is it time for me to just kind of step away, hand it off for somebody else and
Exactly.
and concentrate on the things that you want to concentrate on.
Yes. And I really needed to do that, stepping away. And I've never been more productive than I am now. I have to say, I'm just like porcelain machine. And I really love it because, kids are out of the house. Husband's got his job. The only caveat in the whole thing is that I have a German short-haired pointer puppy. That's my only problem right now. It's a high impact dog. It's a Maserati of dogs. And he takes a lot of attention and a lot of time. So in a way it's good though, because it takes me out of my world and gives me that time, where you just have to focus on him. And then you come back and you focus on I like to hyper focus on stuff. So this dog gets my time every day, a certain amount of time. And then that's it. And I got to go back to my work and either lock him up or stick him somewhere for a while. He's quite a dog.
That's awesome.
Do you spend much time thinking about how much time you may have left and how much work you can create and your legacy?
Yes. Funny you should ask that question. I spent a lot of time thinking like that. I recently had an accident a year and a half ago, and I literally fell down in a hole in a basement. So the basement hatch was open, and I fell down straight down 8 feet onto concrete floor. And I'm fine. Everything was fine. I hurt my knee pretty bad. So I can't do karate or kickboxing anymore, but I could do many, many, many other things. But it was an eye-opening moment and that was only a year and a half ago. But I think the older you get, the more you realize there's less time in front of you than in back of you, right? So I do feel obsessed, but I've always been obsessed, but now more obsessed with creating, like, okay, this much time. How am I going to, parcel that out between my home life, and my art? Luckily, my husband is full-time employed, and so he's easy, and everything else works fine. It's just, I do have this big chunk of time to myself to work, and I love what I do. So yeah, I am obsessed with my time, and I think you, as an artist, I think if you are not selfish with your time, you're not being honest to your craft. You have to be selfish. You have to say, this is my time. And I have to be like a dog with a bone with it. Because if I'm not, it's a slippery slope. Believe me, I have a greenhouse. I have a garden out there that's constantly asking me for attention. I got dogs. I got plenty of friends. They all I love having parties. I love throwing parties. And I don't plan my parties. I call all of my parties, and I've had many this summer. Impromptu party coming up this weekend, bring a side. And we'll have like a crazy party. And then everyone goes home. And then that's it, And I don't really do much. I just like bring, offer drinks and make my own main dish. So yeah, friends, gardening, husband, dog, all of that really has to be in its place over there to my artwork. My artwork has to be center. And I think all the artists there that are listening today, they must share that. If they don't, they should reevaluate. because it has to be the most important thing. Because that's, as an artist, it's so, you're kind of like, you're self-centered in a way, but yet you want to share, right? And you're a human on this planet. So you're a lover, you're a plant grower, you're a cook, you're a mother, you're a father, you're many things. But foremost, you have to be, number one, an artist. I mean, look at any artist that's ever done well. They have to think about their time and how it's spent, right? And luckily, I have great support from my family and my loved ones, and my friends. They get it. They get it. If I don't talk to them for like a couple of weeks, and then I invite them all over for a party, it's like, okay, let's make up. Where were we now? You know, and then art parties are the best, right? So
that's what separates the greats from everybody else, is how much passion and time they put in to hone their skill. And I think that's a very accurate statement. It has to be the first thing. It
does. It has to be like what you think about at night and what you wake up wanting to do in the morning. To really, I mean, you could dabble in arts, and I think that's wonderful that everyone should feel like they're an artist. I wish that everyone did and had that opportunity. Not everyone does, but if you can just create a little something, that's a different kind of art, and not to be dismissed. Because people who only have time on the weekends to do it, they're every bit an artist. But as far as I am concerned, I feel I have to put in my day. I have to put in 5 hours. Otherwise, well, first of all, my work, each piece takes about a month. It's a long time so there are times I could start another piece during that month, but it's a lot of time. So that's why I'm even more careful about what I end up doing. I don't take random trips anywhere. I pretty much, it's all, either I'm working or I plan something in the future so I can work around it. But I'm not dismissing people who only have time, a small amount of time to make art. I think that's important. That's as important. But for me, it has to be full time, because that's all I've ever done. I've only ever been an artist, ever. Once I was a co-check girl. Truth be told,
you could be an artist.
Truth be told, exactly. Other than that, I just, any way to get by, I would, so I can continue to do what I do. So that's how I live my life.
That's awesome.
That's my journey.
Wow.
And we didn't even talk about Troma.
Well, we're going to get to that.
Are we? Are we? Yeah. Oh, I thought we were wrapping up.
No, no, Wes Brown. I know
Wes Brown.
We could have right there.
Because we have you on today, and I did want to touch a little bit about everything. And I'm glad that we've spent so much time talking about, your fine art, your sculpture and porcelain work. But I do want to kind of circle back, because this is not where you started. This is where you're at now.
Right.
So you started out as an illustrator, correct?
Right. Correct.
And you went to Parsons?
I did. So the journey there is, after you come out of art school, you have to go home and learn how to paint, because they don't teach you how to paint there. They teach you everything but painting, I swear to God. They kind of have you do a portfolio, but come on, I was 18 when I went in there and 21 when I came out. And unless you're a freaking genius child, that, you don't have that portfolio to necessarily go out and make a living. So after I spent time at Parsons, I went back to my parents' house. Again, I just did everything I could to get by, and they were gracious enough to have me there for 2 years. I developed my portfolio slowly but surely. I worked in magazines, and then I worked in book covers. So I started off, I even did like a Western book cover, but mostly I loved doing science fiction. So that, and then I went from science fiction to children's books. I've always loved children's books. I took a class at Parsons with Maurice Sendak because I was so in love with his work. And I love telling, again, narrative stories with children was really what I loved doing. So I did some picture books for a while, and then young adult. So I made most of my living around young adult. I did Nancy Drew for several years, and I did work with tour books. So I did all the classics like, Wind in the Willows and Alice in Wonderland and Scarlet Letter. I did all those kinds of things for a while. And then towards the end of my career, not quite the end yet, I kind of fell into getting lucky again. Luck plays a big part with Troma films. So they were interested in using me for their posters, and I did 17 of them. And I recently sold one for a nice amount of money. So they are becoming a collector's item. So it's, again, one of those timeline things we were talking about earlier. I'd like to sell them now before I'm gone. But of course, once I'm gone, they're just going to go crazy, skyrocket, because nobody's making these anymore. So what we have up here now is Toxic Avenger 3, which is kind of funny because I didn't do the Toxic Avenger 1, not 2, but 3. So 3 is like, can you go any lower? I don't know. So there's Toxic Avenger punching out the devil, the last temptation of Toxie. So I would think that this would be pretty valuable. It looks like they doctored up the back of it. They put flags back there. I did not paint them. So then I did many others. Some of my favorite posters I did for them were, just going to say that one, Stuff Stephanie into the Incinerator. So much fun. So I would sit around with the owners, mostly Lloyd Kaufman. There was Michael Hertz and Lloyd Kaufman. And I would talk with Lloyd, and we would talk about stuff that has nothing to do with the movie, that what would be funny for an image. And we would talk about things that might be in the movie. In other words, the movie maybe wasn't even made yet. And we'd come up with ideas of what would make a good cover and what might be in the movie. And we would just kibitz back and forth, making jokes about things. So this is my husband's foot. and I think I might have swiped that girl from some soft porn magazine, possibly. Not sure exactly anymore, but again, it would be a reference shot. But I thought it was a star. And I do love funny things. I do love humor.
That's awesome.
So you were creating these images before the movie was even made. Like
Correct.
You were just sitting around riffing with this guy and kicking around ideas. No pun intended.
Totally. Yeah, Bloodhook. That was fun.
So can you still see these movies? Are they out there?
Totally. They're on there. You can see them on. Oh God, if you Google it, you'll be able to see. Oh, go back one for a second. Because there's my husband again. He's the one with a gun. That's my husband sitting down. And awesome. There's Kirk Douglas's son on the left with the chains.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes you get people like that. Anyway, you can go to the next one, but I just have to point those two things out.
Story of a junkie. That sounds ominous.
Ooh, nasty. It was fun. That's a big painting. So they're all oil on board or canvas. This is not a great photograph, but this was a lot of fun to do. So did this ever happen in the movie? It might have, but I don't know if there was a skeleton like that, half dead. But there might have been a lot of blood and people acting like they're eating people. I'm sure that happened.
And that's called The Curse of the Cannibal Confederates.
Yeah. Got to see that one.
The South will rise again and again and again.
And again. Exactly right. That's so cute. Now here's a real portrait of my husband. So I have these guns still. They're plastic, but I think I would really be in trouble if I walked around with them now. So he was up on top of the building that we were living at, posing here. And the characters on the left side were probably a swipe from somewhere. Hunted to death. That was fun.
That's please.
Preacher Man.
Yeah, this was actually a photo shoot. So this was something that probably actually happened or maybe happened in the book. I mean, in the movie, because these were real models that I had painted from.
He's a smooth talking, law breaking pastor of disaster.
I love it.
I couldn't have made a better tagline if I tried.
I know. He's so good at it. Look at the money coming out of the car. Sense of humor. Evil clutch. Now, okay, some of these paintings magically disappeared. Someone stole this painting from
Really?
me. Yeah, it's gone.
Wow.
It was gone a long time ago. I don't know when or how, but at some point years ago, it disappeared. I'm really upset because I really like this painting.
So when did you paint these roughly? When was your
80s, mid to late 80s?
Okay.
Yeah. So this is my girlfriend, Karen. She was so mad at me for painting her like this because she didn't look like that. And it was fun to do that. And the model in the middle, I found in the West Village. She was my waitress. And I asked her if she wouldn't mind posing. And the guys right and left, I remember they might have actually been from the movie set. But Deadly Daphne's Revenge. Look at her. She's so nasty. Those nails, teeth, and the eyes. Yeah. Ferocious female freedom fighters. That was fun. Little swipes here and there. And it's a huge painting again. It's a real big one. But a collector's item. Yeah, this one
Troma's War.
Yeah, Troma's War. So this was, they did several posters for this movie. And I did one of the first ones. So I don't know which one they went with, but I think they used them all. White Elephant, the Battle of the African Ghost. So yeah, this is frightening.
It's amazing.
Other than the one that sold and the one that got ripped off, you have the rest of them? Actually,
it's funny you should say that. You're very intuitive, Todd. Or somehow you got to. So this one we're looking at, Death to the Pee-wee Squaws. That one's missing, not missing. I had to give that to the parents of those two kids because the Lloyd asked me to give it to them. So that disappeared. 3 of them. And then 1 sold. So 4 are missing or are gone, I should say.
And so do you have a gallery that represents or
that's me.
That you yourself? So somebody sees one of these posters online and they're curious, they can just reach out to
they would have to reach out to me directly. Exactly. So I hold all the remaining posters, all the original posters plus the original artwork. So the original artwork is what is the collectible. So this one, Demented Death Farm Massacre, the movie, that was me with a boob job and a wig and a fancy outfit. And the guy was, he's pretty funny. So I'm giving you all the inside scoop of these things that are maybe interesting or not to people. But at the time, it was fun for me. I mean, I had the boots and the, nice legs at the time. And the guy was a PhD scientist, and he was willing to do a couple of poses for me for various illustrations. This is one of them. So I just love this one. I love the painting. The background is airbrush with oil paint, believe it or not, which is not safe. And then the rest of it is oil on. This one is on board, I believe.
Wow.
So yeah, I have the paintings, and they would have to contact me, which is go to my website, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
And obviously, there's people out here that know these movies that would love to have something like this. Would it vary in price depending on what movie it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does vary. Like the more popular ones, like the Toxic Avenger one, goes for a much higher price, similar to the price of my sculptures, actually, because it's very collectible. And then ones that are not as collectible would go for less. This was my next door neighbor. Put a wig on her and a boob job.
I think this is one of my favorites. So this one is entitled Flesh-Eating Mothers. They bit off more than they could chew.
Yeah.
I actually want to like go back and look at all these movies, and I would love to do the voiceover for the trailers.
Mhm.
Fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There you go, Todd.
That's your next gig. This is the one that this one disappeared. This is gone. And yeah, it's really sad because I like that one too. But yeah,
it's
my
cool.
art friend on the right and his niece, which actually she was only like 12, but I changed her around a little bit. Yeah.
I married a vampire, and he's a real good sucker.
Whatever. This is one of my favorite paintings. Starworms. It's just fun. I mean, I love it. She was a waitress, that the same one I talked about earlier, that I found in the West Village, and paid her $75, and she was happy to dress like that, and just fun painting. Beastie women firing guns with like monsters and fun spaceships in the back. Attack of the Pleasure Pods.
I love that.
I love it.
I don't know if there was a Star Wars 2, or 1 rather. I think sometimes they just start with 2 because it's funny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Back in the
Star
day,
Wars.
in the 80s. Right?
Yeah, it's like, wait. Oh, I missed one. I missed the first one. Let's see Star Wars 2 then. No, you have to imagine, the kind of clientele is usually 16, maybe 20-year-old boys, after drinking a beer or two, would go out and watch these movies with their friends.
Oh, totally. Totally. I remember Toxic Avenger, the original one, being such a popular movie amongst my group of friends back in the day. And
yeah. So good.
It's cool that you did one of the posters for the whole series. So that's awesome.
Yeah. 3. Number 3. We did the first one. First one, no. That's like 2, like it's cool, but it's like not as cool as being 3, because 3 is like so under cool. It's so below cool. It's like 3.
Oh
anyway,
man.
It is funny.
So you studied under Maurice Sendak, and for people, did I pronounce his name right?
Yeah, Maurice Sendak.
Yeah. For people that, maybe that name seems like it rings a bell. He did Where the Wild Things Are, correct?
Yes.
So that's one of his books that made him famous. There's one or two more, I think, as well. What was it like being instructed or having him as an instructor?
Well, I didn't have a really great experience because basically that's why I went to the school, because he was there and he was always my idol. But when I went there, unfortunately, he just mostly signed autographs to his books. So I didn't have the best example of teaching from him. Honestly, that's what he did. And he would draw and he would talk to people, but not in a way that was educational for me. So it wasn't a great experience, but it's okay, because you know what? His inspiration was there, and it was always there for me. He'll always be an idol to me. I love his work, and that's enough. I mean, I took his class, but I wasn't as happy. I was a little disappointed that he wasn't really giving much of a lecture or a talk. It was more of like he was an idol and everyone knew it, and he was too big a star at that point. I was in school. That was probably 1978. So he was really peaking then. Where the Wild Things were out a long time. He did Little Bear, which was a series, which was adorable. He's a great artist and probably a great friend, but for me, not a particularly great teacher. But I had other teachers. Most of my favorite teachers came later in workshops, and also you get what you can get out of people. It's like if people are willing to give, and I'm there for the receiving of it, but some people are just not gifted teachers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And other people are excellent at it and they want to share. And then there's what you can get for yourself. So I basically went home after going to Parsons and taught myself how to paint. Me and my girlfriend would be on the phone together, like, so you mix one color into the other, and that's how you shade? it's like, oh, I can do that. We'd like literally be teaching each other how to paint at like 11 o'clock at night. You know, we'd be having like conversations, and she'd be in Brooklyn, my girlfriend Freddie, and we would be just chatting about how to paint. And we learned on our own. And I found I do learn a lot on my own by trial and error. And I tried taking workshops and stuff like that. And that's helpful. And also calling out to people, reaching out to people, picking up the phone and calling them helps. So, but Parsons was good. It was a good experience because I couldn't come out of high school and just start being an illustrator. So I had to go that route. I had to do everything that I did to get to where I am today.
So you were thankful for that experience, and it gave you a good foundation to work off of, it sounds like.
Yes, it did. So,
but as far as your painting is concerned and your etching,
yes,
you're pretty much self-taught, yeah?
The etching I did learn in Parsons. I learned it from this man. His name was Muhammad, and he was a master printmaker. And then I continued my studies in Summit, New Jersey, with a man named VJ. So that you really need to learn from. You have to be taught the techniques. And now my studio finally is a fully working etching studio, intaglio studio. So that took a lot of work. So my studio I can paint, I could sculpt, and I could do my etching there. The biggest and most difficult thing physically to get was the aquatint box. It's this giant thing. It looks like a 3/4 size of a coffin. And basically you need that in order to do an aquatint. And you need to do an aquatint to do most of the intaglio printmaking. So I have the press, I have the aquatint box, and everything else is kind of small. There it is. It's my husband in orange. Oh, God. It was just a difficult thing to get in there into the studio. And it had to sit on cinder blocks. And so that's part of the studio there. Sink, very important to have a sink. And the floor was important. So when I moved here, I was very attracted immediately to the space that was a garage. Look at my husband. How sweet is he? The floor is an epoxy floor, so you could basically drop anything on it and it comes off. So that's an aquatint box. It holds something called rosin, and there's a crank there, and you crank it and all the rosin goes airborne. And then you wait a few minutes and then you put your plate in, and the rosin settles down on top of it. And then you take it out and you put it on a hot plate and it melts slightly. And then basically from there, you're going to put into ferric acid, and that bites everything but the rosin, and it creates like an indentation, if you will. So the rosin it's sort of like a pixel, where the rosin is like a pixel in like the old newspaper prints. We have little pixels to make up an image. So the rosin is like the little pixels. So everything around it will collect the collect the ink. And then you wipe the plate, and then you put it through the press with moist paper on top. It's a process.
It sounds like it. I wish you lived closer. I'd love to come watch you work.
I would love to show you. I should probably do a video of the whole thing on Instagram, because I think it'd be fun for people to see how much process there is, because people do this still, but it's truly a craft, and it's a craft that has a lot of procedures that you must learn. And also most people do not have this box. Let me tell you, most people who do etching, they do it in a studio, and it's good to do it in a studio because you learn, as I said, from other people. Master printers. And I did learn from 2 master printers, and you really have to learn from a master printer in order to do etching. you really have to know your stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of technique. It's definitely more than clay.
I want to talk about one of your etchings real quick here. This one, Coyote. I love this.
Yeah,
That's
that one's very, very popular. I've sold many of them. It's called a sugar lift, and it also was done with aqua tint to start with. And then you basically take ink and sugar, like Caro syrup, mix them together, and you paint on top of the surface. And then you, with high heat, it pops off in bubbles. And then you basically are going to etch that. And then what is etched is the black part, what you see. So that becomes inked. And then there's some dry point. Dry point is when you take a needle, a diamond tip needle or a scribe, and that's what the hair is on, like the tail and on his hackles. So it looks a little bit soft. And the background is like it is also an aqua tint. So it looks kind of simple-ish, but it's you gotta know your stuff to do a sugar lift.
Looking at it, I thought it was actually pretty complex and really interesting. I love that piece.
Thank you. My neighbor, who has 400 chickens, has problems with coyotes. So just so you know, that you can get the idea of where I live. She has so she took a picture of this coyote running in the rain, and I said I just loved it, and that was my inspiration for this etching.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, as we wrap this up, we always like to talk a little bit about business, and so I got to ask you, how do you go about selling your art? Is it mostly through your website, or do you have gallery representation?
Not gallery representation right now, but I sell them through shows. There's art events around that I bring my etchings to. These sculptures are, when somebody falls in love with them, they'll come to me and work at a price, and I'll sell it through the studio. So right now I'm not represented by a gallery. My mission is to get these in museums. And as I go along, starting along here, go from one to the other and sell them as I go. And also I'd like to keep them together intact, this particular series intact as much as possible. And as they sell, to replace them with new ones. So there's always going to be the 14 sins and virtues. The paintings I sell by word of mouth. I'm living in an area that people respect and buy art. So from my studio, I sell.
Do you do many commissions?
Sometimes, occasionally. I used to do a lot of animal commissions of people's pets, but at this point, I do my own work, and basically people like it, they buy it. But no, not too many commissions.
It's nice to be in that position, right? Where you're
Yes,
just doing what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely feel lucky for that.
But that didn't happen overnight. It was, just like everybody.
I'm a 40-year overnight success. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
This is a question we ask a lot of different artists, and you do so many different things, but how do you go about pricing your art, from your etchings to paintings to sculptures?
Like kind, size. Etchings are usually pretty reasonable. They're in the hundreds. The sculptures, I find other like kind artists who are similarly famous or not famous, similar world as I am. And the painting is also like kind. Like basically there's a market out there that, for a certain amount of size and fame, you can sell your work for, certain amount, in the thousands. But that's how I sell it. I sell it locally and in shows and by word of mouth. And I price it according to basically what other people. Right now, Meissen is pricing my work at my sculpture at 10,000 euros. So the diligence one, and that's a reproduction. So I have to stay with where they are because I can't change my prices here. So it has to start there. For a complicated, that's the one with that funky hat. For something that complicated, that's where it starts.
Nice. With them reproducing these, did you have to negotiate very much to like figure out where that would be?
There was some negotiation because when I went to the Meissen factory, I saw ones that were, I thought, more elaborate for more money. That I thought, well, actually, I thought mine was more elaborate than some of the ones I had, but they have an idea of what it will sell at. So we would negotiate back and forth and we came up with that price. And I get a percentage of that. So because it's their materials, I wanted to stay here and create more work for them with their clay, but they wouldn't have it. I would have to go there to be, to make more Meissen artwork. I will be a Meissen artist because it's going to be reconstructed there. It's my image and their clay, but it has to be their clay and their people processing it to be considered Meissen. So I think going forward, I might have to actually go there to create more work to be considered, Meissen. I don't know if they're going to go about doing they're going to 3D scan it and reproduce it that way. They're going to get a model, a 3D wet model, and then they're going to make a mold from that. And then they're going to make up to 25.
Wow. Okay.
And so, but I think going forward, I don't know where we stand, but I think that's what it's going to be. I'm going to have to go there because I know someone who did that, and that's what happened to her. She went there she lived there for 10 years. Hopefully that won't happen. That's a little bit much of an investment for even me. I like my studio, my life too much, and those impromptu parties I was talking about. Yeah. Greenhouse.
Well, that would be a really interesting thing to experience though, right? That process.
I would go there for like a month. I would do that.
Yeah.
And after my dog is not a puppy anymore, I would definitely be able to leave my husband with this life for a month and he would be fine. But it would be an incredible experience because to work with these people, that's how I like to learn, to work with people who are more experienced in, glazing or model making than I am. Like I would learn all the holes I have in my learning would be filled, in a place like that because I heard they're just masters. They're just incredible masters at what they do. So because they've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years, since 1710, I think it was, where they started. So they know what they're doing. They know how to make molds like nobody makes molds. So it would be amazing to work with them. So we'll see where that goes.
Do you get many sales off your social media?
Yes and no. People contact me through that. It's true. Yes, there is some. A lot, no. Some, yes. More sales locally by word of mouth, but definitely do get it from social media. Instagram, yes.
And then this isn't really part of the equation at this juncture of the game, but what would you do in your younger years when you were up against the wall as far as rejection is concerned? How would you handle that? How did you negotiate those waters?
I still get rejected. What do you mean? Everyone gets rejected. Let's see. It was hard. It was hard, but it's a part of my life. Like I've only ever been an artist, so I'm used to it. But you don't ever get used to the pain. You just know that you have to move on. There was one time that I was promised a solo show at a very prominent gallery, and it was taken away from me. That was bad. That was like I kind of went into a dark place for like 2 days. Turned off my phone, didn't answer. My poor husband was away. He thought I died. My kids thought I didn't know what that. Not the police didn't show up, but it was almost to that point because I just couldn't get myself out of that hole. I just was devastated. devastated, because everything was all in play. And then she's like, no, not going to happen. I'm like, what do you mean? So that was a big disappointment, because it was a notable gallery. I'm not going to mention, but who was, it doesn't matter. But as an illustrator, happened all the time. Happened all the time. And you have to not take it personally. But in the beginning, you do. You're like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my art? What can I do better? But as you get older, you get, of course, thicker skin, and you realize it's not you. It's not your art even. It's that it's the wrong place. Like my Nancy Drew paintings, I have about 6 of the 24 that are left. I sold most of them at conventions, Nancy Drew conventions. I mean, and then the Troma paintings, I know where they should sell. It'll be a Comic-Con. You have to go to the right venue. You have to show, like my porcelains, most people don't get it because, the average person doesn't know about porcelain. They don't know about, where the origins are. They don't just, they see it might be special, but they don't get it. So you have to put it in places where they would get it, such as museums or special venues that have gardens and special buildings to show them in. So it's all about where your artwork is promoted. You have to promote your work in the right place, in the right venue, in order for it to be accepted, you know what I'm saying, and bought. First they have to value it, right? They have to value what it is. So I once put a Nancy Drew painting on eBay for $500, and nobody picked it up, and I eventually took it down. And then I went to a convention, and they're like, I got $2,000 for the same painting. Because you have to know your client. That's the right place to be. And they did have that value. So, you just have to put it in the right place, and to deal with rejection, everybody still does. Does it hurt? Yeah, but it doesn't hurt like it used to. Sometimes you get rejected. It's not their fault, not my fault. My fault. It is my fault because I put my art in the wrong place. So I can only blame myself if I get rejected now. But in the past, it's like, sometimes it's hard to take. When everything was lined up the way you think it was supposed to be, like this gallery that everything was working perfectly, and then it doesn't work out, then you're like, just want to kick yourself in the butt. Like, then you're just beside yourself. So it's hard. So I still get rejected, yes. And thank God, married to my husband, David, who is very supportive, and friends are helpful. And I'm sure all of my art friends out there now who are listening can relate to that. Because if you don't have your friends and you don't have your support team, you're just crying in your own beer, and it's just too sad. So you have to pick yourself up and do it again. So it's like, okay, that didn't work. Try it again. Try something different. Throw that spaghetti back on the wall again. Something's going to stick. Someone's going to love it. I don't have a ton of sales. I get the right people to buy my work, the right people to fall in love with my Nancy Drews, the right people that admire. If we're going to talk numbers, I got 10K for, you didn't show Surf Nazis Must Die. That was amazing. That was the price. That was what I had to get. And he was willing to pay, and that's where you go from there. That it merited it. So you have to just move forward, and put your artwork in front of the right people at the right time in the right place, and you'll sell. Everybody will sell. Some artwork is easier to sell. Landscapes, animal painting, even portraiture is easier than Chacma baboons in white porcelain. It's like, not everybody wants it. It takes up real estate in your house, right? It's like, where am I going to put that Chacma? And I think it's cute, but, where's it going? So, and it's an obligation to take care of it. You better not have cats.
Beyond the Sins and Virtue exhibition that opens at the Hunterdon, do you have any other exhibitions or anything else coming up in 2023 that you're looking forward to, or you want to promote while you're on here?
I am looking forward to promoting more museums. I have a list I have a short list that I am promoting now, because right now I have Meissen at my back, who is producing my work. I have the Hunterdon Art Museum. So I feel like I'm in a good position to move forward with other venues that are similar. So yeah, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, Boston Museum of Art. There's Hillwood Gardens and Museum that I'm looking at. So there are different venues that I have plans to use my art that I have now and where it is right now to promote myself going forward. And I am creating a new series right now. It's Japanese samurais. So it's pretty funny. I have a samurai that I made. It was so much fun to make him. He's rather large, and it's replacing wrath, so anger. So he's got a sword in back of him, and he's going to slam down onto dozens of butterflies because he's angry. We don't know why. But anger is like that. It's one of those philosophical things that, like, why did you ever get so angry and then you're done with the anger and you're like, I didn't have to get that angry. Angry, just like sometimes you just black out and you don't see anything. Like my puppy, it will make me so angry sometimes. He just chewed up my boots last night. And I'm like, really? It's like, all right, there are other examples that make me more mad, but road rage, people who have road rage, it's just like, you didn't have to get out of the car and, yell at that person or shoot that person. It's irrational. Most of the time, it's not rational. So that's how I see anger. So the samurai trying to chop up butterflies seems like the right thing. So that's what I'm working on now.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm working on it. I have to send you images. Definitely. I'll just send them to you wherever they end up going. Doesn't matter. I'll send them to show you how it ended up, because he's quite a feat. He's probably the biggest and most complicated piece I've done. So it's fun. I started it in October.
Wow.
So, and I'm still finishing up. So I had a lot of things going on, but yeah, finishing up other pieces, but it's taken me a while to do this one. It's been quite the journey. So it's been fun.
That'll be cool to see.
Yeah.
Tricia, I can't thank you enough for spending the time that you did with us today, especially before your opening tomorrow. And I wish you the best with the opening. I know it'll be wonderful. Wish I was there.
I wish you were there too. Well, let's talk about porcelain. Whet your appetite there.
That's right.
Well, it's been wonderful talking with you both and getting to know you. And you guys are incredible hosts. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we love your work and excited to see what comes out, and we'll keep an eye on you. And I'd love to chat with you again soon.
Sure. Thank you, Wes.
Yeah.
And thank you, Todd.
You're very welcome. If you happen to be in the Clinton, New Jersey area, be sure to check out Tricia's exhibition, Sins and Virtues, at the Hunterdon Art Museum. It opened January 22nd and runs through the 5th of March. You can find more information at the Hunterdon Museum website, hunterdonmuseum.org, and be sure to check out Tricia's work at her website, triciazimic.com, and follow her on Instagram at Tricia Zimic. As usual, I'll have all this info and more in this week's episode notes. For the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.